one of the reasons I formed ISIS was that there wasn't enough, from my point of view, enough science injected into the policy debates in Washington. And we've, over the years, tried to fill that role. And so we tend to concentrate on the more technical side of issues. And we concentrate on nuclear nonproliferation pretty much exclusively now. We've worked in other areas, other nuclear areas before, but now it's really focused on nonproliferation, what states are doing, what terrorists may do. And tonight, what I'd like to do is talk about Iran, which is certainly in the news. And I'd like to start with just a simple question of should we worry about Iran? Certainly, you're probably familiar with the National Intelligence estimate that came out in early December of last year. And the headlines were quite dramatic, that Iran did not, after all, have a nuclear weapons program. The Bush administration had been saying pretty consistently that it did, and then they retreated, and in Washington, there's, and I don't know if you saw it on TV, there were all kinds of accusations that Bush has done it again, that the mishandling of intelligence, that they knew somehow that there was no program. And what I'd like to do tonight, though, is dig deeper into that topic, that it's not quite as simple as Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapons program. And in fact, one of the headlines I'd like to have is that in a sense, the Bush administration and the intelligence community in the United States was coming around to what most of the world had already concluded long ago, particularly at the International Atomic Energy Agency, the inspectors in Vienna, that the issue isn't a secret parallel nuclear program that could involve nuclear weapons. The issue is right in front of us. It's a declared civil nuclear program that is providing Iran with the capability to make nuclear weapons. And it was that concern in 2003 that led the three European foreign ministers to go to Tehran and make a deal with the representative of the supreme leader of Iran so that Iran would suspend its uranium enrichment program that uses gas centrifuges. And I'll talk more about it. It's at this site here called Natanz. But it would suspend and enter negotiations with the European Union to see if there can be a permanent settlement where Iran would get incentives and trade off parts of its nuclear program. And so again, in the National Intelligence Estimate, they talk about the nuclear weapons program stopping in Iran in the late 2003. And I think to those European foreign ministers, it was pretty clear that Iranian leadership wouldn't have sat down with them if they hadn't suspended their nuclear weapons program as well. So I think the NIE, in some senses, shouldn't be a shock. It's the United States readjusting its analysis and facts to what a lot of the rest of the world had already come to believe. And from the European point of view, in fact, a German government official said it, the NIE did not remove the suspicions about Iran. If you read the unclassified version of the NIE, and that's all I can read, we actually don't carry security clearances at ISIS. We want to stay outside of government. But if you read it, it's rather pessimistic about the future. I would almost say that there's an expectation that Iran will eventually get nuclear weapons that is widely shared in the intelligence community. And so you have a situation where the headline, even for the NIE, should have been more that Iran, while it stopped a nuclear weapons effort, didn't stop its ambitions, and we strongly suspect once they develop a capability to make highly enriched uranium, that they may seek to build nuclear weapons at that point. And that's important because the highly enriched uranium production is really the long pole in the tent, if I can quote one of the leaders of the effort that led to the NIE. Making the nuclear weapon itself is simpler. It's not simple, but it's simpler than putting together the capability to make the highly enriched uranium. And Iran started trying to do that in 1985, according to their own declarations. And so here it is over 20 years later, and they're still struggling to make their uranium enrichment program work. So they're not going to need that amount of time to fashion that highly enriched uranium into a nuclear warhead that could either be launched on a crude missile or dropped as a bomb. Let me talk briefly about another facility. This is called the Esfahan Uranium Conversion Facility, and it was built with Chinese help. It's very large. It's sized for a civil program. It was the first facility Iran opened during when it ended the suspension, and it started making, it's called uranium hexafluoride at this site. It's the feed gas for the centrifuge program. It's absolutely vital. And for those who were thinking of military strikes, this was the one main bottleneck in their nuclear program. It's not anymore. They've made something like over 330 tons of uranium hexafluoride so far, and you only need 5 to 10 tons of this natural uranium hexafluoride to produce enough weapon-grade uranium for a bomb. And so, and also near that facility, they built a tunnel complex, which is up in here. And this one the IA did visit. IA used commercial satellite imagery like this to find out that it was going on. They then asked Iran what's going on, and Iran said, we forgot to tell you, we're actually doing something nuclear related in this facility. Come on over and you can look. And again, this was to store uranium hexafluoride equipment, things like that. But again, it's hard to destroy these kind of sites. This shows just a closer, another view of the tunnel complex. This one is a little later, and they now have three tunnel entrances, and the facility underground stretches around like this. Another facility, which is fairly easy to see in satellite imagery. It's a little hard in this image, but there's a heavy water production plant here. And this was picked up by the inspectors by the United States long ago. You could see it being built. It has very distinctive characteristics, very tall towers. And it means that Iran wants to build a heavy water reactor. That's why you would make heavy water. And sure enough, over the years, it's appeared next door. It's in this area here. And so that's in 2004. Here's in 2006. You can see two images of it. The cylinders where the reactor itself would go in. And then here's some ground shots of the heavy water production plant. Now, I should say that Iran is not succeeding very well at enrichment. It's operating these 3,000 centrifuges, but it's not operating them very well. The origin of the centrifuge is actually European. It's a Dutch model that this Pakistani named A.Q. Khan stole. He was a spy for Pakistan in the 70s. He stole this design, brought it to Pakistan, duplicated it. It never worked that well. He also stole another design, a German design, which was much better. And as soon as he could make that German design, which was harder to make, he then replaced all these old, what he calls P1 centrifuges. He had a desire to make money. He also had a very still does, a very anti-Western grudge. He then started to sell these centrifuges in the 1980s. And one of his first customers was Iran. But he tried other places. He tried to sell to Iraq, tried to sell Iraq help on making nuclear weapons in October of 1990, right after Iraq had invaded Kuwait and was understanding that it's probably going to good chance it's going to get invaded by the United States. He was willing to step in to offer Iraq help on building a nuclear weapon and also centrifuge designs. But Iraq had actually acquired their own centrifuge designs and didn't need that, but they did need the bomb design. Fortunately, the war stopped that deal.